My case study is about the Girl Scouts and their tweet about Amy Coney Barrett. And this relates to my research because my research topic was effective communication that can be used by nonprofit organizations. So I'll start with just giving an overview of what I'll be covering in this presentation. Ugh, okay. First, we'll talk about who are the Girl Scouts. Then we'll talk about who is Amy Coney Barrett. Then I will tell you guys kind of what happened, what was the event or the situation. And then I will talk about how this connects to PR concepts that we discussed throughout the semester. So, when many people think of Girl Scouts, this is probably what pops into your mind: the cookies. Everybody, most people at least, are familiar with Girl Scout cookies. But first, I'll start off with talking a little bit about what it means to be a nonprofit organization and what Girl Scouts really does. So, first and foremost, Girl Scouts is a nonprofit organization. Specifically, they're a 501c3. So, what does this mean? First, it means that as a 501c3 organization, they are tax exempt. And the reason that they are tax exempt is because they are completely dedicated to fulfilling a charitable mission. So, they're not about turning a profit and distributing that profit to shareholders. All the money that they receive goes towards resources that help them fulfill their charitable mission. So let's look at Girl Scouts mission statement to find out what that mission is. As you see here, Girl Scouts is all about building courage and confidence and character in girls to give them the ability to make the world a better place and feel like they can reach their potential. So, again, girl empowerment. Now, another important concept of 501c3 organizations is that they cannot be political in any way, shape, or form, really. I mean, they can't lobby for specific candidates, they can't lobby for specific legislation. And if they do so, they put themselves at risk for losing their tax exempt status. So they do have to remain as nonpartisan organizations. And then lastly, Girl Scouts fulfills their charitable mission of empowering young girls and inspiring confidence in young girls through a variety of activities. They do horseback riding, camping, STEM, rock climbing. They do a whole bunch of stuff to help girls build their confidence and leadership skills to reach their potential. So now let's talk about who Amy Coney Barrett is. Amy Coney Barrett, this is her. She is a sitting judge on the Supreme Court. She was sworn in by President Trump in 2020. She's only the fifth woman to serve on the highest court, and she's conservative. So if you know anything about how the judicial system works, um, the court itself is nonpartisan, but the judges are appointed by presidents, and typically the presidents appoint a judge who aligns with their political views. So the big thing with Amy Coney Barrett's appointment was that her appointment gave Republican appointed judges a majority in the Supreme Court. So out of the 9 seats, 6 of them are now filled by Republican appointed judges. And many people were concerned that a majority Republican appointed court would repeal rights on abortion, which we're seeing the aftermath of that now. But this was really why many people were against or for Amy Coney Barrett being appointed to the court. So now let's talk about what happened with Girl Scouts. So this was the tweet that Girl Scouts sent out when Amy Coney Barrett was sworn in, as you can see here. And if you remember, Girl Scouts as a 501c3, they cannot be partisan, they can't be political. So they sent out a congratulatory tweet. If you look at the wording, they're congratulating her on becoming the fifth woman to serve on the court. And they have pictures of all the other 4 women who served. So this got backlash from people who thought that it was wrong of Girl Scouts, an organization dedicated to female empowerment, to be congratulating a woman who posed a threat to reproductive rights. This tweet was inappropriate. They felt like it was not right of them to post, even though Girl Scouts didn't necessarily frame it in a political way. It was interpreted that way. On the converse side, when Girl Scouts deleted the tweet, as we'll talk about soon, people who maybe supported Amy Coney Barrett or didn't see a problem with the tweet felt that Girl Scouts should not have deleted the tweet because it wasn't political for them to just simply congratulate a woman on such a huge achievement. So, as I just mentioned, this tweet came down almost immediately. I mean, within hours of going up. And This is the statement that Girl Scout released. They are just reminding their followers or viewers that their intent was not to be political or partisan and that they are neither red nor blue, but Girl Scouts green. And if you remember, as a nonprofit, as a 501c3 specifically, they can't get into politics. And clearly, their intent, as they've stated here, was not to make a political statement by congratulating her. So now that we've talked a little bit about the situation, let's get into where we see some of the PR concepts that we discussed reflected here. So, first, we'll talk about the situational theory of publics. Then, we'll talk about corporate social advocacy and how it comes into play here. And then, we'll talk about effective communication for nonprofit organizations, which, like I said, this was what my research was over. So, I'll tell you guys some of the findings of my research and how, in this example, Girl Scouts was kind of outside the guidelines of best practices for reasons that you can decide whether or not were intentional or misguided or just, bad luck. So, situational theory of publics, really quickly, this theory basically runs on the assumption that publics are going to form and they're going to form and communicate about issues that they believe are important and that, pose a threat to the well-being of society. So, when these publics form, there is specific factors that affect the extent to which they communicate about these issues and how they do so. So, problem recognition. To what extent does the given public even realize there's a problem? Constraint recognition. To what extent does the given problem think that they can actually does the given public think they can actually do anything about the problem? And then involvement. To what extent does the given public feel like this problem has anything to do with them or will affect them? So based on these variables, there is 4 types of publics that form, and we will be talking about one of them. The first public is all issue publics. They are really active on all issues. If you remember from the Sierra Club study, these are the publics that were most likely to become activists. Apathetic publics, as the name suggests, they don't really care, they're apathetic. Single issue publics, these are publics who form around usually a very niche issue that maybe won't affect the population on a large scale. And then there's hot issue publics, which this is the public that we saw as the theory predicts, that we saw arise about Amy Coney Barrett's appointment. Now, the basis of hot issue publics is that they form around think about like a red button issue that gets wide media coverage that everyone's talking about, and clearly abortion fits right in this. This has always been a topic of major discussion. And so, as the theory predicts, we saw that play out in the Girl Scouts and Amy Coney Barrett tweet debacle. So, as Gruenig explains and predicts in this theory, a controversial issue activates hot issue publics. And these are some specific examples of tweets. There was a lot more, but these were just a few that I found that were the quickest to read. As you can see up top here, people who supported the tweet being posted thought that it was wrong of Girl Scouts to give in to pressure to delete the tweet because they were still congratulating a woman on a huge accomplishment. And then down here at the bottom, we see people who feel like it was wrong for Girl Scouts to congratulate a woman who posed a threat to reproductive rights and the freedom of many women. So this is kind of where these 2 hot issue publics clashed. And again, Girl Scouts was right in the middle from their own doing. I mean, they tweeted the tweet. So that's a little rundown of how we see the situational theory of publics reflected here. So now let's get into corporate social advocacy. So let's start off with the definition and some predictions of the concept of corporate social advocacy. So first, this is the Dodd and Supa definition. It refers to an organization making a public statement or taking a political stance on socio-political issues. Now, as nonprofit organizations, if you remember, like I said, they are completely dedicated to a charitable cause. So a lot of what they do is advocacy because they're advocating for whatever this cause is. And they're advocating in the hopes that people will agree that it's an important issue and will help out in some way. Volunteering, donating, spreading the word, whatever. Now, that's important because the same study by Dodd and Supa found that when stakeholders aligned with or agreed with the advocacy that the given organization was doing, they were more likely to act in the organization's best interest. So in the case of nonprofits, Stakeholders who agree with what you're advocating for and who agree with your cause may be more likely to donate, may be more likely to volunteer, may be more likely to tell other people to do the same. So that's why corporate social advocacy is crucial to nonprofit organizations. Now, where did it go wrong in the case of the Girl Scouts? Well, the thing that they were advocating for wasn't interpreted the same across their stakeholders. So they believe themselves to be advocating for the accomplishment of a woman, being elected to the Supreme Court. But to some, it looked like they were inappropriately advocating for someone who posed a threat to women's freedom. And on the other end, many people believe that by them deleting the post, they were going outside the lines of their advocacy by not advocating for a woman reaching this accomplishment. So you can see here that when a tense political landscape complicated the interpretation of this advocacy across stakeholder groups, conflict arose and the organization found itself in a sticky situation. So now it's important to talk about corporate social advocacy because that ties into effective communication for nonprofits. So here I'll tell you a little bit about my research findings and how we kind of see the guidelines of best practices laid out in our Girl Scout example. So for nonprofit organizations, the research that I conducted found two main things that was the most important for organizations in the nonprofit sector to do. First, all of their communication, whether it's sending letters to donors, tweeting, whatever, all of that communication should build trust in the organization and its commitment to these values and mission. So basically, what does this mean? It just means that in every message that gets sent out from a nonprofit organization, it should build stakeholders' trust in the organization and build stakeholders' trust that the organization is truly committed to this mission and is acting appropriately towards fulfilling this mission. So the communication should always be building trust. Now, what kind of communication builds trust and gets to these outcomes? Communication that affirms and aligns with the given nonprofit's values and mission. So let's think back to Girl Scouts mission statement to, encourage confidence and leadership and empowerment in young girls. All according to the research, all of their messaging should align with that. So here, what we see here in the example of the Amy Coney Barrett tweet, many people saw this tweet in some way, shape, or form falling outside that alignment. So people who were against the tweet felt that, someone who could potentially support the repealing of reproduction rights is not who an organization dedicated to female empowerment should be championing. On the other end, people who felt that, regardless of political affiliation, Amy Coney Barrett is still a woman. She was appointed to the highest court. And so congratulations are in order. And so doing so does align with the organization's mission of encouraging and empowering women. So as we can see here, even though the research shows that, yes, this is the type of communication that works the best, in the case of Girl Scouts, we see that it didn't work because such a polarizing issue and such a polarizing topic kind of put some ambiguity on the extent to which a congratulatory Amy Coney Barrett tweet aligned with the organization's mission. So just a quick recap, situational theory of publics, we see that in the way that these people really on either side of the issue rallied and kind of spoke out against the tweet being posted and the tweet being deleted. We see corporate social advocacy in the way that Girl Scouts believe themselves to be advocating for their cause, but it was misinterpreted. And then third, we see effectiveness of communication for nonprofit organizations because this communication was less effective due to the fact that many people didn't agree on the extent to which it matched with what Girl Scouts' mission and values should be. So, thanks.